going to be doing today is solving equations and inequalities. This is one of your first videos that you've watched and taking notes with me. So I just wanted to go ahead and outline what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be solving two-step equations, equations with variables on both sides, equations with a distributive property, and inequalities. Okay, so I'm first going to talk about two-step equations. So the two-step equation that we're going to do today is 2x plus 5 equals negative 11. Okay, with this we have one variable right here, x, and then we have a constant right here, and then we have our constant right here, and then we have our coefficient right here. So, and we've got our negative 11 over here. That this expression right here is equal to negative 11. So we're trying to figure out what x equals. In order to be able to do that, we have to be able to isolate x. In order to isolate x, we have to get x alone on this side. So in order for that to happen, we first have to, I like to call, it's basically like doing order of operations, but kind of backwards. So you're basically saying, the first thing I have to do is add or subtract. So I have to move this 5 over here. In order to do that, I have to do the inverse operation of that, which is to subtract 5 on both sides in order to keep the equation balanced. So now I'm left with 2x equals, because 5 minus 5 equals 0, and then negative 11 plus a negative 5 equals negative 16. Okay, so now we just have a 2 right here. Whenever you see this coefficient right here with the 2x, that means that there's 2 x's. So that means that in order to get it alone, there's multiplication in between here. So we have to do the inverse operation of that, which is to divide. So we're going to divide on this side in order to get x alone, and whatever you do to one side, we do to the other to keep the equation balanced. So now we have 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we don't have to keep 1, that's fine, because anything times 1 is itself. So we have x equals, we've got negative 16 divided by 2, which is a negative 8. So x equals negative 8. Okay, now this is our first one. This is solving two-step equations. We did one step here and 2 steps here. Okay, now our next one is equations with variables on both sides. Now this works because we have our variables are both x. So I'm going to rewrite this. I've got 7x minus 4 equals 5x minus 22. Okay. So the first goal that you have to set out to do is to get the x's on the same side, all the variables on the same side, which in this case is all x's, which is great because you can combine those because they are like terms. So you can condense those together. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this 5x over here, but in order to do that, we have to subtract that 5x over here to the other side. Okay, so now we have 7x minus 5x. We now have 2x. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. We've got 2x minus 4 equals negative 22. So now what I'm going to do is move over our constant, our c over here, onto the other side so that we can have all our numbers on the same side. So we've got plus 4 on one side and plus 4 on the other. So I'm trying to move this over and have that equal 0 on this side. So now I have 2x equals negative 22 plus 4 is a negative 18. Now I'm having to still get this this x alone, so I have to think, okay, well, that's multiplication between those two. I need to do the inverse operation of that, which is to divide. I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides, and I've got x equals a negative 9. Okay, so now we have now done two-step equations right here, and we've done equations with variables on both sides, and now we're moving to equations with the distributive property. So 4, and I'll move it up here in a second. 4 times 3x plus 2 equals 52. So the first thing you'll notice about this problem is different than the other two. This problem right here has parentheses right here. It has a grouping of this expression. So what we want to do is try to essentially get rid of the parentheses. So in order to get rid of the parentheses, we have to, we're multiplying it by both of these terms inside. Okay. So now I'm going to distribute this 4 to the 3x, and I'm also going to distribute the 4 to the negative 2. Okay. So 4 times 3x is, you're going to multiply this number times the coefficient, which is 12, and I have 12x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, equals 52. So now, because I've distributed, I am now back up to this two-step equation. So now I'm going to do the inverse operation right here, to move this constant over here. Okay. So now I've got 12x equals 60. Okay. And I'm going to divide this by 12, divide by 12. X equals 5. Okay. Now we're going to move on to solving inequalities. Now, some of you might go, oh no, this is an inequality, I don't know how to do this. But I want you to think back to last year. You didn't do a little bit of solving inequalities. You're just going to take it a little bit further. But I also want you to notice that there's really not much difference in the steps between an inequality and an equation. You're just treating it a little bit different when you're graphing, and then whenever you're graphing them on a number line, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Not in this video. Let's look. So I want you to treat this just like it's just a two-step equation, but with an inequality sign. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, same thing we did up here, is remove the constant. Okay, so we're going to move this from right there to right there. So we're left with negative 4x less than or equal to 20. Okay. Now, the one thing that I want you to notice in this problem is that it has a negative 4x. Now, when you're doing inequalities, this is the one difference between an inequality and an equation. Whenever you're dividing by negatives, you're going to flip the sign, and that's the only time you're going to do that. So you're going to flip the sign whenever you're dividing by a negative number. Okay. So you've got x, and remember to flip. Okay, x is greater than or equal to negative 5. I hope you enjoyed these examples over two-step equations, equations with variables on both sides, equations including the distributive property, and solving inequalities. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can inbox me or you can email me anytime. Thank you.